Roanoke's history is told like a ghost story, 115 settlers vanishing, leaving behind a deserted fort and a single carved word. But when Governor John White finally returned to the island in 1590, the physical scene he documented told a far more grounded story. The houses had been methodically taken down. White found no bodies, no discarded weapons, and no signs of a struggle. Modern retellings treat the word Croatoan as a cipher for the supernatural. Packing up heavy materials for a coordinated relocation suggests a deliberate exit. The evidence points to a colony that didn't vanish, but moved. The 1587 colonists arrived at a flashpoint. A military outpost on the island 2 years earlier had burned local crops and permanently ruined relations with the neighboring Secatan tribe. Desperate for help, Governor White sailed for England, only to have the outbreak of the Anglo-Spanish War trap his relief fleet in port. The Spanish Armada delayed his return for 3 years. The forensic evidence of the dismantled houses shows that when the settlers reached their breaking point, they had enough time to strike the settlement properly. White and the settlers had agreed on a specific symbol to indicate a crisis, a cross pate, to be carved above their destination if they were forced to flee. White scoured the palisade and the surrounding trees. He found no cross. This makes the word Croatoan a geographic coordinate. It was a nearby island and home of the English's only Native American ally, Monteo. The carving functioned as a forwarding address, telling White the colony was moving 50 miles south to live with allies. These families were executing a calculated emergency protocol. If the colony wasn't driven out by a massacre, a different pressure must have forced them to abandon their fortifications. By analyzing the growth rings in ancient bald cypress trees like this one, climatologists can reconstruct weather patterns from 4 centuries ago. The data shows the Roanoke settlers arrived during the region's most severe drought in 800 years. With failed crops and empty woods, a group of over 100 people could no longer survive in one place. They had to fracture into smaller bands to avoid exhausting the local land. Excavations at nearby indigenous villages have since uncovered 16th-century English pottery and iron forging waste buried alongside Native American tools. By trading their English societal structure for life within Native American tribes, the colonists chose assimilation over starvation. In 1709, the explorer John Lawson visited the Hatteras people and noted tribal members with gray eyes who claimed their ancestors could talk in a book. Why was this documented history of survival buried in favor of a tragedy? In the 1830s, historians like George Bancroft began romanticizing the colony's end. They traded the reality of English citizens adopting indigenous culture for a myth of noble, vanished pioneers. The history was replaced by folklore, tales of the first English child, Virginia Dare, being magically transformed into a white doe. The settlers survived by adapting to a brutal environment, relying on indigenous Americans to preserve the first citizens of England's overseas empire.